Thanks everyone for being here. I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. So this is my thesis defense, and obviously this is by myself, Ashritha Chinapaga, and I'm a student at the Early College of Guilford, which is located in North Carolina. So if I can figure out. Okay, there we go. So my introduction is, here's my introduction slide. The topic area is my lanthanide nanoparticles, which are basically nanoparticles created out of elements in the lanthanide series. And I wanted to investigate their usage as contrast agents for computed tomography, or CT scans, as they're more commonly known. And my research question was, why are LMPs a great choice for CT contrast agents? So LMPs is also an abbreviation for lanthanide nanoparticles, so you might hear me refer to it as either. So a couple of quotes that I took from my introduction are, lanthanide-based nanoparticles are very promising candidates due to their high X-ray attenuation and their K-edge energy. So basically, these are some important terms that we'll need to go over. So X-ray attenuation refers to like the degree of darkening on a CT scan. So for example, if you're viewing a image or something and there's two tissues right next to each other with really similar densities, they might show up as really similar colors on the CT scan, which can make it hard for them to differentiate. And that's why contrast agents are often needed in CT scans, is to make sure that these structures can be differentiated, because it's really important, especially in when you're trying to make a medical diagnosis, and this could be the difference between someone's life. It's really important to make sure that you can see everything on the CT scan. There's nothing you're missing. And K-edge energy just refers to like how the electrons can be taken out of the shells on each atom has like a nucleus, and then they have electrons outside of it. That's not really as important, but it's still important to note because the K energy also is related to the X-ray attenuation. Also, they're incredibly versatile in terms of surface modification and biocompatibility, which makes them suitable for imaging applications. So for example, with surface modification, it's talking about like adding different proteins or different structures of DNA or different antibodies on the surface of these particles just to make them more biocompatible, or even make them like target a certain structure so we can view one specific structure a bit better. And biocompatibility just refers to like that it won't cause an adverse reaction from the immune system, which is also really important because these contrast agents are going to be in the body and they're going to need to stay in the body for some time in order to be viewed on these scans. So yeah. And here's an image. I couldn't fit it on the last slide, and I wanted to make sure that it was visible here. So this is an image I created in BioRender, and it just shows the different applications of nanoparticles and how they can be used in different types of imaging. So obviously you have like MRI imaging, PET scan imaging, CT imaging, but then there's also more therapeutic applications through radiochemotherapy or radionuclide therapy. And here's my literary review. So this is one slide with one citation, and then the next slide will have another citation. So my first citation is just talking about this paper, Jiang et al. 2023. And this paper was actually immensely helpful when I was writing my paper, because it compared and contrasted several types of nanomaterials and how they performed. So it didn't talk about just lanthanides, it also talked about iron and copper and bismuth and other things. And it found that lanthanides, compared to these other materials, they performed really well because of their high X-ray attenuation, as I mentioned in the introduction. And as you can see, I have another image that I created in BioRender, which just shows the relationship between attenuation and the density of the structures. And here's the continuation of my literary review. I have this paper, Ramani et al. 25, and this paper was also really helpful because it compared and contrasted several types of synthesis methods for lanthanide nanoparticles. So it talked about the different ways that nanomaterials could be prepared, and what the advantages and the disadvantages were. And this was really important because synthesis can have effects on the human body, and it can affect functionalization, which is just, as I was talking about earlier, the modification of the surface by adding like proteins or like DNA or antibodies, so to make the nanoparticle do different things. And so my methodology and results. So what I basically did is I did a literature search in several academic databases, for example, like PubMed and Google Scholar. And the review covered studies between 2000 and 2024, and I didn't have any restrictions set for languages or anything in the database. I just made sure consciously that I was obviously with studies only in English because that's the only language I could read. And I also made sure that these studies were fairly recent. And yeah, I prioritized the more recent studies because I thought those represented the knowledge of the database much better. And so what we found was that lanthanide-based nanoparticles, they have significant advantages contrast agents for CT imaging because they offer so many potentials for surface to customize the surface properties, and they have high levels of X-ray attenuation. And so here's the conclusion. I just came and I restated the research question. So why are LMPs a great choice for CT contrast agents? And we found that it's because of their high X-ray attenuation, their high rates of biocompatibility, and lots of opportunities for surface functionalization. And my contribution to the paper is that I found all the papers and I wrote it by hand and I made sure all my statements were backed up with citations when necessary. And lastly, I just want to talk about my research experience with Gifted Gabber. I've never really done anything like this, like writing a paper, so this was really new for me, but I found that the program as a whole was really good at making sure people from all kinds of different experiences had what they needed. So I remember Dr. Lilova really helped me make sure that my paper had like true statements, they're scientifically sound, and she helped me find papers when I was stuck on certain things, and she helped me make sure everything flowed well and everything was like how it should be typically said in an academic manner. And Professor Toramocha helped me make sure that my paper was correct grammatically, and he also helped me make sure that the plagiarism and AI indexes, they were low. So that was to make sure that my paper wouldn't be flagged for anything, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And the program gave me lifelong skills on how to do research, just like how to find how to look at a database, how to find what I need, and how to just, even if I don't understand all of the words in a paper, just how to make sure I get the main idea and I can still get what I need. And it also really helped me, like teach the importance of citations and just how to do those correctly. And I guess the most thrilling aspect was being able to contribute to the larger body of work on lanthanide nanoparticles, which is something I honestly never dreamed I'd be researching about, but I'm just really grateful that I got the opportunity to do that. And I'm also really grateful that I have the opportunity to publish my work. So, yeah, thank you for listening.
Amazing work, Ashritha. You can stop sharing. Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let us have Professor Lilova, and it's so nice to see all the students. You come in as as a cocoon, and you fly away as a butterfly. And I personally learned so much from you guys. So let's get with Professor Lilova. A question for Ashritha.
Sure. That's a great paper. First of all, very interesting topic.
Thank you.
I have one question for you. So why do we want to replace the traditional contrast agents?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that? I think my audio was doing something weird.
Why do we want to replace the traditional contrast agents? Why we want to use something different?
So I know with traditional contrast agents, with especially iodine, I think that's the most common one. Iodine can sometimes have effects on like the livers, and it can sometimes be toxic in higher concentrations. Well, we found with lanthanides that they don't have the same effects. Like they don't have the same effects, and they can be, created to be more biocompatible. So that's definitely one advantage. And also with lanthanides, they can attenuate the X-rays easier, and they have a greater they're able to contrast tissues more effectively. So
thank you. Great.
Yeah, of course.
I was on mute. Professor Wagel, a question for Ashritha.
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations, Ashritha. This
thank you.
Breaking research, and I know that you're very passionate about this topic. So I have one question. What do you think was the most challenging aspect of your research?
Probably the most challenging aspect was finding papers that would fit my topic specifically. Because there's papers, I mean, I picked one that was kind of specific. So there's papers that are like about lanthanide nanoparticles, but they're about a different modality of imaging, such as MRI. Or there's papers that are about CT contrast agents, but the nanoparticles that they were investigating were like iron nanoparticles. So they were something that weren't in the lanthanide series. So it was definitely just a challenge to find papers that fit my topic, but I ended up finding quite a lot of papers. So I'm really happy that I was able to overcome those barriers.
Bravo, wonderful, wonderful.